the bathroom and then he just left me. So I was like left alone on the street.
Influencer Mary Magdalene was famous for all the wrong reasons. Her cosmetic surgeries have helped her build a public persona that was more criticized than it was loved. But even then, there was just something intriguing about her tattooed eyeballs and extreme body transformations. But what drove Mary to such extreme lengths? What people didn't know was that behind her dramatic online presence, Mary lived a life filled with personal struggles and health complications. Behind every piercing and every surgery was an aspect of her life that was spiraling out of control. The very pursuit of the physical appearance she was known for ultimately led to her fateful end at the age of 33. Chapter 1. The Early Life of Mary Magdalene. Before all the extreme transformations documented in detail on Instagram, Mary Magdalene was a young girl named Denise Yvonne Jarvis Gongora. She grew up in Canada in an extremely strict religious family. Mary grew up not being allowed to watch even cartoons or Disney movies because her parents believed that this kind of exposure would lead her astray. However, this constraint only fueled Mary's rebellious streak from a young age. By 12, she had started experimenting with illegal substances and alcohol because it was a way for her to escape the rigid rules of her home. The influencer herself has admitted to her early years being the wildest time of her life, where she was going to school drunk and engaging in all kinds of reckless behavior. Little did anyone know, though, that it was all a cry for help because she wasn't finding the peace and love that she craved at home. But things only went downhill from there. It's easy to see how these early experiences contributed to Mary's later choices. Her upbringing in a strict religious household with emotionally distant figures may have set the stage for her later need to escape into the world of cosmetic surgery, where she could control her image and assert herself in a way she hadn't been able to in her youth. At 17, she started working as a dancer and later turned to escorting to support herself after leaving home. Mary would later describe this phase of her life as emotionally damaging. She felt trapped in a cycle of self-destructive behavior, seeking affirmation through her body and the attention it brought. However, she had started calculating her self-worth through her outward appearance. A few years down the line, she had the sudden feeling that the older she got, the less attractive she would become. So, at the age of just 21, she decided that she wanted cosmetic enhancement surgery. But of course, she didn't have the means to go to a legitimate plastic surgeon to get it done. Most people would have saved up for it, but Mary wanted it as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this led to her traveling to Mexico for the procedure, which was performed by a dentist. Of course, there was no way this would have a positive outcome, and the botched surgery practically set the stage for the series of extreme transformations that were to follow for Mary. It was almost as if she were addicted to plastic surgery, because despite her first traumatic experience, she decided to keep going. She got several nose jobs, a liposuction, a gluteal implant, and even eyebrow tattoos, to the point where she couldn't recognize herself anymore. Maybe it was a way for her to erase her dark past, but Mary turned her body into a canvas for her own self-evolving idea of beauty. But with each procedure came new complications. Chapter 2. The Dark Side of Beauty. Mary's liposuction didn't just target her body, it also affected her face and eventually resulted in issues with facial movement and expression. Her face became stiff, to the point where she couldn't close her mouth properly because she would just keep getting lip injections and other fillers. As her obsession grew, Mary's body began to undergo even more drastic transformations. She wanted a larger, more pronounced figure to match the beauty standards she aspired to, so she began to seek out gluteal implants and Brazilian gluteal lifts. These procedures were even more dangerous than the earlier ones with higher risks of complications. But Mary didn't stop. She spent a whopping $500,000 on her countless surgeries and then spent more money trying to deal with the consequences. A particularly dangerous instance was when she had a cosmetic implant deflate, and leaving her with what she called a single contour appearance. But what's worse is that the rupture led to sepsis, and her chest had to be reconstructed to prevent any further complications. Mary, though, wasn't ready to give up. Instead of opting for a break from surgery, she once again went back to expanders. Chest expanders are devices that gradually stretch the skin over time, allowing for bigger implants. Mary's decision to go ahead with this choice was another desperate attempt to fix the damage caused by her earlier surgeries, not to mention the time she almost went blind from tattooing her eyeballs. This happened when one of the tattoos leaked ink, and the ink began to stain the surrounding skin, leaving Mary at risk of permanent eye damage. She went on to admit that she was nearly blinded by the procedure. After suffering from blurry vision and swelling, Mary faced complications that could have permanently damaged her eyesight. Despite the severe consequences of this decision, she didn't stop. Her search for a new identity and a new beauty led her to cover her entire body in blackout tattoos. Years later, Mary confessed to feeling trapped in a never-ending cycle of operations to correct previous botched procedures, lamenting that it had become draining in every possible way. She added that her savings kept depleting because she would get botched procedures that would then have to be rectified. Her energy and her health were at an all-time low, and she felt like she was digging herself into a really deep, expensive, and time-consuming hole that she couldn't get out of. Despite this awareness, the surgeries didn't stop. Instead, Mary continued to pursue the ideal version of beauty, one that was shaped not by societal standards, but by her own distorted perception of herself. By the time Mary Magdalene was in her mid-20s, her transformation had captured the attention of the online world. Her Instagram profile, featuring a curated feed of extreme body modifications, tattoos, and provocative content, began to amass hundreds of thousands of followers. What set her apart from other influencers wasn't just her aesthetic, but her audacity to push the boundaries of beauty standards to new extremes. Chapter 3. Mary's Social Media Rise. While Mary's outward appearance was a burden for her, that was exactly what her fame was growing out of. And she almost became addicted to the social media attention as much as she was addicted to the procedures themselves. Her eyeball tattoos, enlarged chest, and endless surgeries became her brand. It's what people came to her account for. Many praised her for being bold enough to embrace the unusual and unconventional. But of course, the criticism poured in from all sides too. Many people saw Mary as a cautionary tale and a warning against the dangers of cosmetic surgery. However, all of that was validation for Mary. As long as people kept talking about her, she was happy. She felt like she had a sense of control over her life, like never before. Her fame exploded when the Daily Mail featured her and wrote an article about her, framing her in an exaggerated and sensationalized way, which only helped her go viral. The first time that happened, Mary was over the moon. She realized that her unapologetic nature resonated with others, and that was the kind of affirmation she needed to keep going. Her surgeries became the main attraction. She frequently posted videos and photos of her recovery process, showcasing the pain and the healing that came with each new surgery. This transparency gained her credibility among her followers and also made her a go-to source for advice on body modifications. However, as the years passed, maintaining her position in the spotlight became a challenge. The beauty industry was constantly evolving, and Mary found herself battling the pressure to stay relevant. The once exciting changes to her body had now become a form of maintenance, requiring more surgeries to keep up with an image that was no longer just about physical appearance, but also about the persona she had cultivated online. However, fame also comes at a price. Mary admits that checking her social media stats, specifically who watches her Instagram stories, became an obsession. This validation through views became a way for her to gauge her popularity and the influence of her persona. The more people viewed her stories, the more it affirmed that she was on the right track. Her content wasn't limited to Instagram. She also used platforms like OnlyFans to share more intimate content, which she believed offered a safer alternative to her past life in escorting. Despite the money she earned back then, she was trapped in a cycle that felt unsustainable. Mary recalls that at times she felt emotionally drained and exhausted by her work. She realized that she was stuck in a system that demanded more from her while giving less in return. She felt like she would be forced to live this way forever until a breakthrough came through social media. She transitioned from the transactional world of escorting and dancing to the more controlled and creative space that OnlyFans provided. On the platform, Mary could create content on her terms, interact with her audience directly, and establish her own brand, all while avoiding the emotional strain she had previously experienced. For Mary, OnlyFans was more than just a financial lifeline. It allowed her to regain control of her narrative and image. Chapter 4. The struggle behind the scenes. However, this once again led her down a dark path. One of the most alarming incidents occurred in 2018 when she underwent an illegal surgery to enlarge her private area, a procedure that nearly cost her life and required 2 blood transfusions. According to the news outlet, no part of her body was off limits when it came to being modified, including her private parts. But even after such close calls, she continued to chase the next transformation. In an interview, Mary explained how her physical transformation into the bimbo aesthetic became a lifestyle. She spoke candidly about her initial disdain for the overdone look and how, over time, she came to embrace it. For her, the extreme body modifications are not about being perfect, but about crafting a persona that fits her unique identity. She enjoys looking trashy and cheap, and she doesn't mind owning that image. It's almost as if she turned the idea of being perceived as superficial into her own form of self-expression. This aesthetic choice is an intentional rejection of societal norms, which she points out through a critique of how some people, especially women, are judged for having certain looks. Mary reflects on how the internet and popular culture play a role in labeling people, and she chooses to flip that narrative by leaning into her so-called trashy persona and turning it into her personal brand. That's not the case behind the scenes, though. Mary has admitted that the persona she had created on social media, that of the glamorous, often wild figure flaunting her surgeries and tattoos, wasn't an accurate reflection of who she truly was. She described this persona as a character that didn't align with her real self. The public Mary was an exaggeration, almost like a performance. She didn't seem to take offense at the judgments people made about her because, in her words, this party Mary wasn't the true version of herself. The real Mary was far quieter. She admitted that she was a boring person who preferred to stay in bed, nurture her animals, and occasionally paint. In her private life, she was far from the dramatic, larger-than-life figure that people knew from the internet. The truth, however, was that this real Mary wasn't always satisfied with the quiet life either. In one of her more vulnerable moments, she confessed that while her real life was steady, it was also a constant source of conflict. The desire for excitement, even if it was dangerous or self-destructive, drove her toward all these impulsive decisions. Of course, her relationship with addiction also played an important role in all this. Mary has always been open about her illegal substance abuse, especially during her years working in the adult entertainment industry. It was during this time that substance usage took over her life and only added to the chaos. Back then, Mary was also struggling with her mental health, especially depression, which followed her into the final years of her life too. Mary has struggled with loneliness all her life, and there had been times when she had thought of ending it all. Thankfully, though, even after coming close, she realized that her darkest thoughts didn't have to define her future. Mary has reflected on her life choices and admitted that, despite the chaos, she had no regrets. She acknowledged that her life had been far from ordinary, but each experience had contributed to the unique individual she had become. Mary may have been misunderstood by many, but she understood herself. And in the end, that was all that mattered. But it seemed like Mary's fate was already sealed, and nothing anyone could do would stop it. Chapter 5. The Curtain Call. In the months leading up to her death, Mary appeared to be in a state of emotional and physical distress. Her social media posts became increasingly unsettling. Just days before her tragic demise, she posted a haunting message on Instagram, sharing a scene from The Truman Show, a movie about a man who lives in a carefully constructed reality. The post was paired with a childhood picture of herself and a cryptic caption that read, "And in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." Mary also made a chilling change to her Instagram account and renamed it Mary Magdalene Died, an ominous decision that raised concern among her followers. Those close to her, including her family, began to express worry over her well-being because this seemed to be a sign, a desperate final plea for help. And it all came crashing down on November 20th, 2025, while Mary was taking a trip to Thailand. A video released by the hotel she was staying in on Koh Phi Island shows the influencer being carted off by law enforcement, claiming she had been left alone on the street, feeling abandoned by those around her. She later shared that she had been unknowingly given substances and reflected on the isolation that came with her fame. In that moment, she suggested that people isolate themselves and find companionship in pets rather than society. This incident, just weeks before her death, signaled the depth of her struggles. On December 9th, 2025, just hours after checking into a hotel in Phuket for a one-night stay, Mary fell from the 9th floor of the Patong Tower Hotel. Her body was found in the parking lot by staff at around 1:50 p.m. local time. Police found a pair of flip-flops belonging to her near the balcony, suggesting that she had stepped out before her fatal fall. In the days following her death, fans and friends were quick to mourn the loss of the troubled influencer. Tributes poured in, with many expressing concern over the toll that the pressures of fame, mental health struggles, and extreme body modification had taken on her. Fans shared that they felt she was not well and that her tragic end was the result of years of untreated emotional pain. The reality of Mary's passing shook many, as they realized that the woman behind the persona had been struggling with far more than just her outward appearance. Some believe that Mary hinted at what was to come in her final Instagram post, which implies that her fall from the balcony wasn't an accident. However, that has not been confirmed as of yet, with the investigation still ongoing. One of the most touching posts came from her brother Ivan, who is still trying to make sense of the loss. Ivan took to social media to write a raw and deeply emotional post to reflect on his and Mary's time together. He celebrated his sister's humor and creativity and wished that things had been different for her. "I just want to hang out with you one more time and tell you that I love you so much. You mean the world to me," wrote Ivan. Mary Magdalene's journey was marked by extremes, extreme beauty, extreme body modifications, and extreme personal struggles. As her fame grew, so did the pressure, and eventually, it was all too much for her to handle. What do you think about her story? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.